Throughout history, entire ancient cities have vanished without a trace, buried by sand, swallowed by jungle, or just simply forgotten. But many have been rediscovered. Join me, I'm gonna count down 15 forgotten cities of the past, found by accident. Starting with number 15, Thonis Heraklion, Egypt's sunken port city. For over 1,000 years, the city known as Thonis Heraklion was one of the most significant commercial and religious centers in the ancient world. It was said to be the gateway to Egypt for Greek merchants and travelers, home to grand temples and harbors, a place visited by mythological figures like Helen of Troy and Paris. But by the time of Alexander the Great, the city had disappeared from the historical records, and for centuries scholars believed it to be either an embellishment of legend or a misidentified reference to other cities. As divers explored the area, they began uncovering statues, blocks, foundations, and ceremonial stelae. These discoveries soon confirmed the identity of the site, Thonis Heraklion, a city long believed to be lost to time. Massive statues of pharaohs and the gods, each weighing several tons, were found toppled but mostly intact on the seafloor. One of the most significant discoveries was the stele of Thonis Heraklion, which included inscriptions that definitively linked the city to those mentioned in ancient records. The question of how the city vanished has largely been answered through geological analysis. The city was built on fragic plains composed of clay and silt, susceptible to subsidence. In combination with rising sea levels, a series of earthquakes, and soil liquefaction, events likely caused large portions of the city to sink. Modern underwater excavations continue to reveal new layers of the city, although much of it remains buried under sediment or waterlogged. Artifacts recovered from the site have been displayed in museums across Europe and Egypt, offering a rare glimpse into a city frozen in time. Researchers have also been using photogrammetry and 3D modeling to reconstruct what Heraklion may have looked like, with complex harbors, canals, temples, and marketplaces built on top wooden platforms. The rediscovery of the city has not only validated ancient texts, but also expanded our understanding of Egyptian and Mediterranean interactions during the late period. It shows how cities that were once thought mythical may indeed have been real, and how shifts in the earth and sea can bury centuries of history until the right moment of chance brings them back into human awareness. Number 14, Akrotiri, a city from the Bronze Age. The ancient city of Akrotiri, located on the volcanic Greek island of Santorini, which is called ancient Thera, is one of the most extraordinary archaeological sites in the world, not just for its age or its location, but for the manner in which it was preserved. Often called the Minoan Pompeii, Akrotiri was buried under a massive volcanic eruption around 1600 BCE, centuries before Pompeii, yet it remained undiscovered for millennia. Its rediscovery in the late 1960s was accidental and began a chain of archaeological efforts that have transformed our understanding of Bronze Age Aegean civilization. The eruption that ended Akrotiri's existence was one of the most violent in recorded geological history. When Thera erupted, it simply didn't just cover the city in ash, it obliterated the center of the island, creating a massive caldera. Pyroclastic flows and falling pumice rapidly entombed Akrotiri, preserving it without burning or flooding. Unlike Pompeii, however, no human remains were found, suggesting that the residents had enough warning to evacuate, possibly due to precursor earthquakes or early ashfall. The significance of the city goes beyond just its preservation. The artistic style, the craftsmanship, and architecture offer a unique window into Minoan society and its interactions with neighboring cultures. Frescoes show monkeys and exotic plants hinting at contact with Egypt or the Levant, where ceremonial scenes suggest complex religious practices. The absence of a palace structure, unlike at Knossos in Crete, also raises questions about the political organization of the city. Modern excavations at Akrotiri continue under protective bioclimatic shelters that shield the site from weathering. Only a small portion of the city has been fully excavated, meaning that many more discoveries may still lie beneath the ash. The site is open to the public and attracts thousands of visitors each year, offering a rare opportunity to walk the streets last used more than 3,500 years ago. Akrotiri's rediscovery was not the result of a grand expedition or a lucky break with ancient texts. It was found during industrial extraction of volcanic material, an entirely accidental beginning for what has become one of the most significant archaeological finds in the Aegean area. Its value is not only in its preservation, but in the cultural connections it reveals. painting a picture of an advanced society that vanished in an instant, only to re-emerge centuries later through ash and stone. Number 13. Mohenjo-Daro, rediscovered city in India. In 1922, during a routine archaeological survey in what was then British-controlled India, a mound near the Indus River in present-day Pakistan was excavated by Indian archaeologist R.D. Benjari. What began as a minor exploration soon turned into the discovery of one of the most important lost cities of the ancient world, Mohenjo-Daro. Mohenjo-Daro, meaning Mound of the Dead in Sindhi, turned out to be one of the principal urban centers of the Indus Valley civilization, which flourished from 2500 BC. The city itself was estimated to have housed between 30,000 to 40,000 people at its peak, and it was notable for its remarkable urban planning. Streets were laid out in a grid pattern, buildings were constructed with standardized baked bricks, and advanced drainage and sewage systems ran beneath the city, centuries ahead of its time. Some buildings even featured private bathrooms connected to covered drains, which emptied into large underground sewers. Now, what's striking about Mohenjo-Daro is the absence of any large palaces, temples, or overt signs of centralized military control. Unlike other early civilizations like Egypt or Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley seems to have been governed through a more decentralized or community-based system. The uniformity of building materials and planning suggests strong civic cooperation. Despite these insights, though, much of this area remains mysterious. The Indus script, an undeciphered form of writing found on seals, pottery, and tablets, has prevented historians from fully understanding the language, governance, or religion of its inhabitants. Thousands of these seals have been found, many bearing animal motifs and symbols which may have been used for trade, administration, or just ritual. In recent years, it's been threatened by tourism, neglect, and environmental deterioration. Efforts have been made by UNESCO, which designated the site as a World Heritage Site in 1980, to help preserve its ruins and restrict uncontrolled access. Today, though, Mohenjo-Daro is a key symbol of South Asia's ancient history. It shows that urban complexity was not unique to the West. Its rediscovery has helped establish the Indus Valley civilization as one of the world's earliest and most sophisticated Bronze Age cultures, rivaling Mesopotamia and Egypt in organization and scale. The accidental nature of its unearthing remains a reminder of how easily history can be buried and forgotten, until the right shovel breaks the surface. Number 12. Ciudad Perdida, Colombia's lost city in the jungle. In the rainforests of the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta Mountains in northern Colombia is a sprawling ancient city that predates Machu Picchu by more than 600 years. It's known locally as Teyuna and internationally as Ciudad Perdida, or the Lost City. This site was built by the Tairona people around 800 CE and remained hidden in the jungle until its accidental rediscovery in the 1970s by looters. The site was first found in 1972 by treasure hunters searching for gold and pottery. After stumbling across stone steps hidden beneath the undergrowth, they followed into a series of elevated terraces and circular platforms. These terraces served as foundations for wooden houses and communal buildings that once housed a population of several thousand people. The central area contains a ceremonial plaza and is surrounded by tiered structures likely used for religious and administrative purposes. The builders used no mortar, instead fitting large stones together with remarkable precision. The city was designed with water management in mind, including systems to control runoff and erosion in the steep terrain. Archaeologists continue to study the site, which is largely unexplored by the central terraces. The local indigenous Kogi, the Wiwa, and Arhuaco communities, descendants of the Tairona, consider Ciudad Perdida sacred. These groups work with the Colombian government to ensure tourism and respect for the spiritual balance of the area. Visitors are often required to participate in small rituals led by indigenous guides before entering the site. This place's accidental discovery is a cautionary tale and a lesson in preservation. Looting led to the loss of valuable cultural heritage, but it also drew attention to major archaeological finds that might have otherwise remained buried in the jungle for centuries. Today, the city stands as an example of the ingenuity of the Tairona civilization, and it serves as a cultural touchstone for the indigenous people who still call the region home. Its rediscovery reminds us that urban centers with sophisticated planning and deep cultural roots existed in the Americas long before European contact, and that the jungles of South America still hold many secrets waiting to be revealed. Number 11. The mysterious ruins on the coral reef, Nan Madol. Nan Madol is an ancient city unlike any other in the world. It's located off the eastern coast of the island of Pohnpei in the Federated States of Micronesia. The site was constructed atop a lagoon on nearly 100 artificial islets, built from massive basalt stones and stacked over coral foundations. The ruins are scattered across 200 acres of shallow water, and they're linked by canals, earning Nan Madol the nickname the Venice of the Pacific. For centuries, it remained largely forgotten by the outside world, shielded by the location and the natural difficulty of navigating the surrounding area. It wasn't until Western explorers stumbled upon the ruins in the early 1800s that Nan Madol began drawing international attention, and even then, serious study wouldn't begin for nearly a century. Evidence suggests that Nan Madol was constructed beginning around the 8th or the 9th century CE, with its most extensive development happening between the 12th and 13th centuries. It served as the ceremonial capital of the Sodelur dynasty, which unified Pohnpei under centralized rule. The Sodelur rulers used Nan Madol as their administrative center and place to reinforce their authority through rituals, religious ceremonies, and the symbolic power of isolation, moving the ruling class away from the island's general population and into a space that was difficult to access and even harder to escape. The construction of Nan Madol is one of the site's greatest mysteries. Thousands of basalt columns, each weighing between 2 to 50 tons, were somehow transported to the site from quarries located several kilometers away on the island's main highlands. The methods used to move and stack the columns remain speculative. No wheels or pulleys were available, and the reef makes water-based transport with traditional canoes almost impossible. Nan Madol, though, began to decline in the 16th century, coinciding with the collapse of the Sodelur dynasty. Oral traditions speak of tyranny, revolt, and the arrival of a foreign warrior named Isokelekel, who overthrew the Sodelur dynasty and established a new decentralized system of governance. After the fall, the city was gradually abandoned and reclaimed by the elements. Mangrove roots grew over the stone walls and sea level shifted, and the structures became overgrown. Because the ruins were difficult to access and were believed by locals to be cursed or inhabited by spirits, few visited the site until modern explorers began documenting it. Today, it is a protected historical landmark and, of course, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Ongoing studies are hampered by the remote location and the environment, but research continues to provide insight into the society that once thrived here. The city remains largely unexcavated, and its full extent and original population are still unknown. Nan Madol is a rare example of architecture built in a marine environment. Its rediscovery offers a glimpse into a complex society that once flourished in the Pacific. The site raises questions not only about engineering and construction, but about cultural exchange and isolation in prehistoric Oceania. Despite being forgotten for centuries, Nan Madol endures as one of the most fascinating ancient cities found by accident. Number 10. Hattusa, the forgotten capital of the Hittite Empire. In north-central Turkey is the ruins of Hattusa, once the powerful capital of the Hittite Empire. At its height in the 2nd millennium BCE, the Hittite state was one of the great powers of the Near Ancient East, rivaling Egypt, Assyria, and Babylon. Yet by the time of the classical Greeks, even the name of the Hittites had been forgotten. Their language, empire, and capital city disappeared from historical records for nearly 3,000 years. The rediscovery of Hattusa in the early 20th century was a moment in Near Eastern archaeology, one that completely rewrote historical understanding of the region. Hattusa itself had been constructed with defensive ingenuity. The city's outer walls stretched for several kilometers and included multiple gates adorned with carvings, such as the Lion Gate and the King's Gate. Within the city, large temples, royal palaces, storage facilities, and military structures formed an organized and hierarchical urban layout. The Great Temple of Hattusa was dedicated to the storm god Teshub, reflecting the centrality of weather deities in the Hittite religion. The city also featured a separate sanctuary called Yezekiah, carved directly into a nearby rock face and containing dozens of figures representing gods and kings. The empire reached its peak around 1300 BCE, but began to decline in the 12th century BCE, likely due to a combination of internal strife, invasions, and regional instability. Hattusa was eventually abandoned, and over time the region was resettled by new cultures. Today, it's recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site and continues to be excavated and studied. Many of its stone structures remain remarkably well preserved, offering insights into ancient engineering, religious practices, and bureaucratic administration. The site now attracts archaeologists and historians from around the world, yet it is still relatively unknown to the general public compared to other ancient capitals like Thebes or Nineveh. Hattus's accidental rediscovery was driven by the curiosity of early archaeologists. From seemingly anonymous ruins in the Turkish highlands emerged a capital of forgotten superpowers. Its story serves as a reminder that entire civilizations can vanish from memory until a few stone tablets and carved gates bring them back. Number 9. Tikal, the Maya metropolis hidden in the jungle. For centuries, the rainforests of northern Guatemala kept a secret buried beneath their canopy, one of the largest and most powerful cities of ancient Mayan civilizations. Tikal, known to its original inhabitants as Yaxmutal, it was once a thriving metropolis and a spiritual center that dominated the Maya world for hundreds of years. Yet after its collapse in the 10th century, it disappeared beneath a blanket of vegetation and was forgotten by the outside world until its accidental rediscovery in the 19th century. In 1848, local gum collectors working for the Guatemalan government stumbled upon large stone ruins while searching for resources. Reports soon made their way to European and North American scholars, sparking curiosity that confirmed the ruins' immense historical significance. Early photographs and sketches of Tikal's pyramids and stelae made their way into archaeological journals, but it wasn't until the 20th century that excavation and research began in earnest. The remains of Tikal include step pyramids, palace complexes, ball courts, ceremonial plazas, and hundreds of stone stelae bearing hieroglyphic inscriptions. The site features over 3,000 structures spread across more than 16 square kilometers, though much of it is still unexcavated. Among the most iconic buildings here are the temples 1 through 6, pyramidal structures rising above the canopy, each dedicated to different rulers and deities. Temple 1, also known as the Temple of the Great Jaguar, stands over 47 meters tall and houses the tomb of Jesau Chankawil, a powerful 8th century ruler. For nearly 1,000 years, Tikal remained a silent ruin in the jungle. Its rediscovery was not driven by scientific ambition, but by the economic activity of gum harvesting. Only later did it become subject of any fascination. Today it's listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the most studied and visited ancient Mayan sites. Excavation continues, revealing new residential zones, tombs, and infrastructure with each passing season. Its rediscovery has shaped our understanding of the Maya civilization. It confirmed that the Maya had developed complex cities with monumental architecture, literate cultures, and advanced political systems. The accidental nature of its reemergence, hidden by centuries of forest, emphasizes how even the most dominant cities can vanish from memory until rediscovered by chance and curiosity. And the hunt for gum. Number 8. Pompeii, the Roman city preserved by disaster. Pompeii, located near the Bay of Naples in southern Italy, is arguably one of the most well-known ancient cities in the world, yet its rediscovery was entirely accidental. Destroyed and buried by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE, the city was effectively erased from maps and historical consciousness for over 1,500 years. When it was finally uncovered in the 18th century, it shocked the European world with its sudden and intimate window into everyday Roman life, one that remains unmatched in the archaeological record. Before the eruption, Pompeii was a prosperous Roman town with a population estimated between 11 and 15,000. It had originally been founded by the Oscans and later inhabited by the Greeks and Etruscans, before falling under Roman control in the 4th century BCE. By the 1st century CE, Pompeii was a thriving center of commerce, agriculture, and leisure, known for its fertile soil, elaborate villas, and busy harbor. The eruption of Vesuvius on August 24, 79 CE, though some modern scholars suggest it may have occurred later in the year, happened with little warning. A massive column of ash and pumice shot into the sky, followed by hours of falling debris that crushed rooftops and buried streets. Many residents fled, but others remained and were killed by the subsequent pyroclastic surges. The entire city was buried under up to 6 meters of volcanic material. Over time, vegetation grew over this hardened ash and the city's location faded from memory. Pompeii's rediscovery sparked immense fascination. It influenced art, literature, and architecture across Europe during the Enlightenment and Romantic periods. Artists and writers drew inspiration from the city, which became a symbol of both human vulnerability and cultural sophistication. The ruins offered an unprecedented look at Roman urban planning, domestic life, and artistry. Villas were found with intricate mosaics, frescoes, and furniture still in place. Streets were lined with shops, bakeries, and bathhouses, complete with graffiti that revealed the humor, politics, and everyday worries of ordinary citizens. The layout of the city revealed much about Roman life. Roads were paved with stones and included crosswalks raised above the street level to allow pedestrians to avoid wastewater. Water pipes, fountains, and aqueducts indicated an advanced infrastructure. Public buildings like the amphitheater, temples, forum, and markets were restored piece by piece, painting a clear picture of civic life in the Roman Empire. Despite the insights, though, Pompeii's excavation has also faced criticism. Early excavators damaged or removed artifacts, and later neglect led to deterioration. Looting and poor documentation in the 18th and 19th centuries meant that many objects were lost or removed from their original contexts. More than 2 centuries after its rediscovery, Pompeii remains an active site and globally recognized symbol of ancient life. It continues to be one of the most visited historical destinations in the world, reminding us that even in destruction, history can be preserved and rediscovered in ways no one could have predicted. Moving on to number 7, Çatalhöyük, the Neolithic city beneath the fields. In the plains of central Turkey, just southeast of the modern city of Konya, lies one of the most extraordinary sites in the world, Çatalhöyük. The accidental discovery of Çatalhöyük began in 1958, when British archaeologist James Millart was conducting surveys in the Konya plain. Farmers in the area had uncovered unusual obsidian tools and pottery fragments while plowing their fields, and one particular mound, or höyük, seemed to contain more artifacts than usual. Millart initiated exploratory digs and soon realized he had found a prehistoric settlement far older than anything then known in Anatolia. In a series of excavations between 1961 and 65, Millart and his team uncovered large portions of the site, revealing a densely packed settlement unlike anything previously discovered. What they found was a sprawling Neolithic city that had been occupied from around 7100 BCE to 5700 BCE, well before the pyramids of Egypt, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, or the cities of the Indus Valley. At its peak, Çatalhöyük is estimated to have supported a population of about 5,000 to 8,000 people, making it one of the largest and most complex human settlements of the Neolithic period. And yet, it had no streets, no public buildings, and no centralized infrastructure, features typically considered hallmarks of early urban life. Despite its size and complexity, though, Çatalhöyük lacked many features that defined later cities. There was no evidence of kings or social hierarchies, no palaces, and no large-scale public architecture. Archaeologists initially puzzled over whether it could be called a city, but the scale of the settlement, density of the occupation, and shared cultural practices suggested a form of egalitarian urbanism, a communal society where power may have been decentralized, possibly distributed among households or clans rather than held by elite rulers. Today, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and an important symbol of humanity's early experimentation with urban living. Its accidental rediscovery in the fields of Anatolia reconnected the modern world with one of its most ancient experiments in how people choose to live together. Number 6. Skara Brae, a stone village revealed by a storm. On the western coast of mainland, the largest island in the Orkney archipelago of northern Scotland is one of the best preserved Neolithic settlements in Europe, Skara Brae. Dating back over 5,000 years, it offers a rare and remarkably intact look at daily life in prehistoric Britain. Skara Brae consists of 8 interconnected houses built partially underground and joined by low stone passageways that help protect inhabitants from Orkney's climate. Each dwelling was approximately 40 square meters in area and followed a consistent architectural pattern. A central hearth provided heat and light, stone-built beds and dressers, their shelving units where prized possessions were displayed. Stone-built beds and dressers were fixed into the layout, indicating a standard domestic arrangement and suggesting the importance of specific ritual or social norms. The site's construction reflects careful planning and adaptation to the environment. The walls were double-skinned, filled with insulating midden material, and roofed with organic materials likely supported by timber or whalebone frames. The settlement was built on a slope with a sophisticated drainage system, evidence of an understanding of engineering and comfort beyond what might typically be expected for the era. Despite the remarkable preservation of Skara Brae, many aspects of its history remain unknown. The exact reasons for its abandonment around 2500 BCE are still debated. Some scholars argue that a series of severe storms made the site uninhabitable, while others suggest broader environmental changes such as cooling temperatures or soil degradation may have played a role. There's no evidence of disease or violence, so the end of Skara Brae was likely gradual rather than catastrophic. The accidental rediscovery of Skara Brae demonstrates how nature can both destroy and preserve. The same stormy forces that buried the village for thousands of years also shielded it from plunder, erosion, and development. When the wind lifted the sand in 1850, it opened a window, not just to a forgotten place, but to an entire way of life that had endured and vanished without a trace. Skara Brae stands as an example of ingenuity of early human communities in challenging environments. Its compact size and exceptional preservation allow for a level of archaeological insight that few other prehistoric settlements can match. In contrast to the ruined grandeur of later empires, Skara Brae offers quiet evidence of communal life well lived, simple, ordered, and self-sufficient. In terms of what it reveals about early human society, Skara Brae is one of the most valuable archaeological finds of the last 2 centuries. It is a preserved record of innovation, domesticity, and resilience, hidden not by intention or catastrophe, but by the slow, relentless work of sand and time. As storms continue to reshape coastlines and landscapes around the world, Skara Brae serves as a quiet reminder that sometimes what seems lost may still be waiting, hidden, whole, and ready to teach us something profound about where we all come from. Number 5. The Atlantis of the Sands uncovered by satellite technology, Ubar. For generations, the ancient city of Ubar was considered a myth, a lost trading hub mentioned in Islamic texts, shrouded in legend and sometimes referred to as the Atlantis of the Sands. Said to have once flourished in the southern Arabian Peninsula, Ubar was thought to have vanished suddenly, swallowed by the desert as divine punishment for its people's pride and indulgence. While many scholars regarded Ubar as allegorical rather than historical, its sudden and accidental rediscovery in the early 1990s stunned the archaeological community and gave weight to what had been long dismissed as folklore. This rediscovery didn't happen with a shovel or a chance stumble in the desert. It began with satellite imagery taken from hundreds of miles above the Earth. The search for Ubar was spearheaded by an interdisciplinary team that included NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, or JPL, the archaeologist Nicholas Clapp, and famed explorer Sir Ranulph Fiennes. In 1992, the expedition uncovered the remains of a previously unknown archaeological site near the village of Shisser. The ruins included a collapsed structure, circular fortifications, and deep sinkholes. As the excavation began, the team found that the site had been used as a caravanserai, a fortified stop for caravans crossing the desert. Radiocarbon dating and material analysis revealed that the site had been in use from at least the early 1st millennium BCE to around 300 CE. Excavations at Shisser continued through the 1990s, uncovering fortifications, storerooms, wells, and layers of occupation that supported the interpretation of the site as a major commercial center. Some artifacts discovered at the site predate the Roman era and include inscriptions in South Arabian script, pottery from India and Mesopotamia, and objects indicating long-distance exchange. These findings help establish that Shisser was not only a trade post, but part of a broader international economic network linking Arabia with the Mediterranean, India, and East Africa. In academia, Ubar has become a case study in a multidisciplinary research. Historians, geologists, linguists, and remote sensing experts all played roles in piecing together the mystery. Without the combined use of ancient maps, satellite technology, field work, and analysis of trade patterns, the rediscovery would have not happened. This collaborative approach now serves as a model for how to investigate other lost cities, especially those that leave behind no monumental ruins, but played crucial roles in economies or cultural networks. Perhaps most significantly, though, the story of Ubar reminds us that lost doesn't always mean erased. Sometimes what is lost is simply overlooked, misidentified, or inaccessible. The city at Shisar may never match the grandeur of the Atlantis-like tales, but its discovery filled in a blank spot in the map of human history. It showed that advanced trade networks existed deep in the Arabian interior, and that desert, far from being a void, was once crisscrossed with routes, ideas, and exchange. Even today, new theories emerge about Ubar and the region's geography. Some researchers believe more cities remain buried beneath the dunes, hidden until similar tools or curiosity brings them to light. The Rub al-Khali, despite its hostile climate, may yet yield more secrets. Evidence of ancient water channels, perhaps, temporary campsites, or oases that once supported thriving life. The rediscovery of Ubar is, at its core, a story of persistence, not just of the explorers who searched for it, but of the city itself, of how fragments of pottery, collapsed walls, and ancient paths managed to endure in silence for over 1,000 years. It's a story of how myth and reality can merge, of how technology can resurrect memory, and how even in one of the most desolate places on the planet, history can survive, waiting to be found. Number 4. Timgad, the Roman city buried by sand for centuries. In the arid expanse at the edge of the Oris Mountains in northeastern Algeria lies a city that for much of recorded history was entirely hidden from view, buried not by water or jungle, but by the slow, relentless accumulation of sand. This city was once known as Thamugadi in Latin, today called Timgad. It was a planned Roman colony, a model of imperial urban design, and a vibrant outpost of Roman culture in North Africa. For more than 1,000 years, however, it lay forgotten beneath dunes, its forums, baths, and colonnades entombed in silence. Timgad was founded in 100 CE by Emperor Trajan as a military colony for veterans of the Roman legions. It's located near the intersection of key trade and military routes. It was strategically positioned to serve both administrative and military purposes. The city was officially named Colonia Maracana Ulpia Traiana Thamugadi, a name honoring Trajan, his family, and the colony's Roman status. With an initial population of perhaps 15,000, Timgad would grow significantly over the next 2 centuries, ultimately becoming one of the most prominent cities in Roman North Africa. From the moment it was constructed, Timgad was designed for permanence. The city was laid out according to a perfect Roman grid, with its main streets, the Cardo Maximus, running north and south, and the Decumanus Maximus running east-west, intersecting at right angles in the city. From this intersection, all other streets radiated out in geometrically perfect alignment. This orthogonal layout, still clearly visible today from aerial images, made Timgad a textbook example of Roman city planning, studied by modern archaeologists and urbanists alike. The buildings within Timgad reflected the city's prosperity and its role as a showcase of Roman civilization. It included a large forum at its center, flanked by temples, public basilicas, and administrative offices. A triumphal arch, later named the Arch of Trajan, stood at the western entrance, a proud monument. The city had 2 theaters, including one large enough for 3,500 spectators, public baths, markets, fountains, and an extensive library believed to have held thousands of scrolls, making it one of the largest in Roman Africa. The residential areas were equally well planned. Houses varied in size and ornamentation, reflecting social class but maintaining general uniformity that emphasized order over ostentation. Mosaics, decorated floors, water channels supplied homes and public fountains, and sewer systems managed waste, showing the engineering prowess that underpinned Roman urban life. Timgad flourished under the Pax Romana. Its population grew, trade expanded, and Romanization spread among the local Berber people. Latin became the administrative language, and Roman law governed civil life. The city became a regional center for commerce, religion, and culture. Its theaters staged plays and musical performances, its baths served as both hygienic and social spaces, and its temples hosted rituals honoring Jupiter, Minerva, and later Christian saints. However, like many cities of the Roman Empire, Timgad began to decline in the 4th century. The slow disintegration of imperial authority, economic contraction, and the shifting of trade routes contributed to its reduced prominence. Its grid-like precision, preserved artwork, and still-standing monuments tell the story of a civilization that valued order, beauty, and public life. Yet its burial under the sand and the complete absence of medieval or modern development over its ruins also tell another story: how entire cities can disappear from human memory, concealed not by design or by destruction, but by the natural drift of time and terrain. Tim Gadd's accidental rediscovery affirms that the past is not always lost. It's often simply waiting. Hidden beneath the dust, dunes, or jungle canopies are the silent remnants of civilizations that once thrived, traded, governed, celebrated, and dreamed. All it takes is a shift of wind, a curious observer, or a bit of sand to move, and what was once myth becomes memory again. Number 3. Great Zimbabwe, the forgotten stone city of southern Africa. In the southeastern hills of Zimbabwe, hidden by centuries of neglect, stands a massive stone complex that once formed the heart of a powerful African kingdom. Known today as Great Zimbabwe, this ancient city, built entirely without mortar, served as the political and economic center of a civilization that dominated southern Africa between the 11th and 15th centuries CE. Its rediscovery, beginning with vague colonial rumors and confused reports in the 19th century, eventually led to the full unearthing of one of Africa's greatest indigenous architectural achievements, long ignored, misattributed, or deliberately erased from historical memory. The city was not rediscovered in a single moment, nor by a lone explorer, but through a slow and often reluctant process driven by local African knowledge, early European settlers, and later formal archaeologists. In the early 1800s, hunters and traders in southern Africa spoke of enormous stone ruins in the hills. The first written European accounts came in 1871 when German explorer Karl Mach reached the site during his travels. Mach, awestruck by the stone walls and towers, could not believe that Africans had built such structures. Influenced by biblical narratives and European biases, he speculated that the ruins were linked to King Solomon's mines or the Queen of Sheba. This myth-making would persist for decades, overshadowing the reality of a thriving African civilization. In truth, Great Zimbabwe was constructed by the ancestors of the Shona people, who still inhabit the region today. At its height, the city covered nearly 2,000 acres and housed an estimated population of 10 to 20,000 people. The architecture is unique in the sub-Saharan context: dry stone walls up to 11 meters high and 250 meters long, constructed from carefully shaped granite blocks laid without mortar. They define 3 main areas: the hill complex, the Great Enclosure, and the valley ruins. These zones reflect political, religious, and residential functions, with the Great Enclosure likely serving as the royal compound. Tourism to Great Zimbabwe has increased in recent years, and the site is now protected as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Conservation efforts face challenges due to natural erosion, vegetation growth, and previously unscientific excavations that destabilize parts of the structure. Visitors can walk through the Great Enclosure, explore the hill complex, and examine the stonework that has stood for centuries. Today, historians and archaeologists view Great Zimbabwe as one of the great non-Western urban centers of the medieval world. It's compared with Angkor Wat in Cambodia, Teotihuacan in Mexico, and Timbuktu in Mali, not only for its architecture and logistical complexity, but for what it represents: a flourishing indigenous civilization that left behind no written record, yet whose stone walls and trading legacy speak volumes. As a rediscovered city, it challenges the assumption that monumental architecture and international trade were limited to certain regions of the world. It stands as clear evidence that sub-Saharan Africa produced complex societies with governance structures, elite classes, religious practices, and regional influence. Its rediscovery, initiated by local accounts, misrepresented by early explorers, suppressed by colonial ideologues, and finally vindicated by scientific archaeology, offers one of the clearest examples of how the truth of the past can eventually be recovered, even after centuries of distortion and neglect. What was once buried beneath the brush and used as a source of local legend has become a beacon of cultural heritage. Great Zimbabwe no longer belongs only to archaeologists or historians. It belongs to the people of Zimbabwe, to Africa, and to world history. Its rediscovery reminds us that the past cannot be erased, only temporarily obscured, and that the truth will resurface, stone by stone. Number 2. Caral, the lost pyramid city of the Andes. In the Supe Valley of coastal Peru, about 200 kilometers north of Lima, is one of the most astonishing discoveries of the 21st century: Caral, the oldest known city in the Americas. Built nearly 5,000 years ago and long forgotten, Caral rewrote history of civilization in the Western Hemisphere. With its massive platform mounds, sunken plazas, and complex residential zones, Caral is a true city, not just a ceremonial center or seasonal gathering place, but was a thriving urban society. And yet despite its significance, it lay buried in plain sight until it was accidentally identified in the late 1990s, thousands of years after its prime. For decades, the ruins in the Supe Valley were known to local farmers. The large mounds and depressions dotting the landscape were generally dismissed as natural formations or simple burial sites. They attracted occasional looters who searched for pottery and textiles, but found little value by colonial or Incan standards. It was assumed that the region lacked significant pre-Columbian development compared to the better-known Andean highlands or coastal Moche and Nazca cultures. That assumption began to unravel in the 1970s, when Peruvian archaeologists documented a number of unusual mound complexes in the area. However, no extensive excavations took place until the 1990s, when archaeologist Dr. Ruth Shady began a detailed survey of the Supe Valley's monumental sites. In 1994, she selected the largest complex, then called Chupagaro Grande, for excavation. Over the next few years, what emerged stunned the academic world. What Shady and her team uncovered was not a small temple or village, but an expansive city covering more than 60 hectares, containing 6 major pyramidal structures, extensive public plazas, circular sunken courts, residential neighborhoods, and administrative buildings. Radiocarbon dating on reeds and organic remains placed the site's occupation as early as 2600 BCE, making Caral contemporaneous with the earliest civilizations in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley. In the context of the Americas, it predates the Olmecs by more than 1,000 years. The city's scale was unmistakable. The largest pyramid, now known as the Pyramid Mayor, stood over 28 meters tall and measured nearly 150 meters in length. A wide staircase led to the top, where ritual activities likely occurred. Adjacent to this were residential quarters, storage rooms, and smaller temples, many decorated with plastered walls and colored pigments. Perhaps even more striking than the architecture was what wasn't found: no evidence of warfare or weaponry. The city appeared to have been organized around trade, religion, and administration, not conquest or defense. This peaceful character stood in contrast to many other ancient urban sites, where fortresses and battle relics are common. Caral's social and political organization appears to have been highly stratified, but also cooperative. Residential compounds for elites and commoners were distinct in quality and location, but the city's layout suggested a degree of centralized planning. Sunken circular plazas, which have served ceremonial or communal functions, were located at the foot of each pyramid, reinforcing the connection between religious practice and urban planning. One of the enduring questions surrounding Caral is how such complexity developed without any known written language or metal tools. No writing system has been found, though the presence of quipu implies some form of accounting or information storage. The absence of warfare, while notable, is not fully understood. Was Caral truly peaceful, or did its dominance suppress rivals before conflict arose? Was religion the central organizing force that substituted for kingship or military power? These debates continue, but what is clear is that Caral represents a non-Western model of early civilization. It challenges Eurocentric assumptions that monumental cities emerge from conquest or hydraulic control. In Caral, leadership may have rested in religious authority, economic coordination, and consensus building rather than kingship or coercion. Caral's rediscovery wasn't the result of treasure hunting, myth-chasing, or satellite imaging, but rather careful observation of landscapes and previously overlooked. Its pyramids were mistaken for hills, its plazas for depressions. The fact that it sat in full view, yet remained misunderstood for centuries, speaks to the importance of context in archaeology. The city wasn't lost, it was misread. Thanks to the decades of work by Dr. Ruth Shady and her team, Corral has emerged not only as a monumental achievement of ancient architecture, but as a symbol of Peru's deep pre-Incan heritage. Her presence in the face of limited funding, political instability, and academic skepticism mirrors the city's own resilience, a culture that thrived for centuries in a dry, demanding environment by innovating, trading, and building with vision and cooperation. As research continues, Corral offers profound lessons, not only about the past, but about what defines civilization itself. It teaches us that order, complexity, and beauty can arise in the absence of war, that societies can flourish with sustainability at their core, and that history is still very much being rewritten, especially in places where no one thought to look. Number 1. The forgotten capital of the first civilization. Among the plains of southern Mesopotamia, where the Euphrates once carved a path towards the sea, lies the ancient city of the crown jewel of the Sumerian civilization. It was one of the world's first great cities, an urban center as early as 3800 BCE, and by 2100 BCE it became the seat of an empire. Birthed revolutionary developments in government, architecture, religion, and writing. For more than a millennium, it stood as the model of organized human society. And then, for over 2,000 years, it vanished. Its name only survived in distant religious texts and oral legends. Its location became uncertain. Its memory, like its bricks, was buried in sand. The rediscovery of didn't begin with archaeologists. It didn't come from a deliberate expedition or scholarly search for ancient Sumer. It began by pure accident, with a terrified man fleeing for his life through the deserts of southern Iraq in the 1850s. According to multiple historical accounts, a European desert traveler, some say a trader or antiquarian, was fleeing from bandits or local tribes near the banks of the Euphrates River. In an effort to hide or escape, he veered off known paths and ended up in a desolate area of mounds and salt flats. There, in the middle of nowhere, he stumbled upon an enormous artificial hill, the Mound of Pitch. The name came from the black tar-like substance, which was bitumen scattered across the surface used by ancient builders. What the traveler saw was unlike anything expected in such a remote and lifeless location. Shards of pottery, scorched bricks, and the remains of monumental walls partially poking through the sand. He escaped the bandits, but he returned later, telling British authorities and scholars in Baghdad of what he had seen. That escape set in motion the modern rediscovery of In 1854, following reports of the unusual mound, John George Taylor, the British vice consul at Basra, was dispatched to investigate. Taylor conducted some of the earliest recorded excavations at the site, unearthing bricks stamped with cuneiform writing and, crucially, inscriptions bearing the name Ur-Nammu, the legendary founder of the Third Dynasty of around 2100 BCE. He also discovered portions of a massive structure that would later be recognized as part of the ziggurat of Still, his efforts were brief and incomplete, and the site once again slipped into partial obscurity. It wasn't until the 20th century that was properly and systematically excavated. In the 1920s and 30s, the British Museum and the University of Pennsylvania sent a joint expedition led by the famed archaeologist Sir Leonard Woolley. Woolley's work transformed our understanding of Sumerian civilization. Over more than a decade of painstaking excavation, he uncovered temples, palaces, workshops, canals, harbors, residential quarters, and most famously, the Royal Cemetery of with its spectacular tombs, gold artifacts, and musical instruments. Ur's rulers developed some of the earliest written legal codes, centuries before Hammurabi. They standardized weights and measures, they built infrastructure and funded trade expeditions. In effect, they developed much of what we now consider the basic features of civilization. But the city's fortunes would wane. After its golden age under the Third Dynasty, was sacked by the Elamites and fell under foreign control. Though it did recover under Babylonian and later Chaldean rulers, it never regained its imperial status. By the time of Alexander the Great in the 4th century BCE, had already diminished. For over 2,000 years, its walls crumbled and the sands took over. Once known in biblical tradition as the birthplace of Abraham, became a ghostly mound, unrecognized, unguarded, unremembered, until a man running for his life chanced upon it. Today, Ur is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, protected and partially restored. Ongoing excavations has revealed that Ur extended much farther than originally believed, and new studies are examining the city's water systems and agricultural strategies. The rediscovery of Ur shaped the narrative of civilization itself. Before its unearthing, the Sumerians were known only by scattered references in later Mesopotamian texts and the Old Testament. After Woolley's excavations, it became clear that the Sumerians had invented much of what would become the foundation of later societies. They were not a primitive people. They were city builders, astronomers, poets, engineers, and lawmakers. The story of Ur is not just the story of an ancient city. It's the story of humanity's first successful attempt to live in organized urban environments, to form governments, to write, to worship together, and to trade across thousands of miles. Its accidental rediscovery by a man fleeing for his life reminds us of a profound truth. Even the greatest achievements can vanish from memory, but they can also return when the sands shift and someone is there to look.